Alright everybody, welcome back. So in this video, we'll be finishing up our road manager that we started in the last video, and hopefully by the end of this video, we should have a endlessly generating environment. So let's see how we can do that. In the last episode, we talked about our road manager, and we set it up basically. And we discussed this update environment tiles function, and we said that the only thing this update environment tiles function was doing was it was pretty much whenever this function will get called, it's just going to take the next tile to be moved and it's going to move it to the position that it needs to be moved. And we saw how we take care of that. We saw how we update which tile needs to be moved, and we also saw how we update the position at which it needs to move. So if you need to have a look at that again, feel free to go back and have a look, and I'll continue on with the last bit. Now, the only thing we have left now is basically just to figure out when to call this function, because this is the real bread and butter, okay? The only thing we need to check now is we just need to see when do we need to call this, and we're pretty much done. Now, if I go back over here to our little road, you and we both know that each tile has a length of 50. And we know that as the car moves forward, let's say by 50 or so units, then it will have gone over the particular tile that it was, and it will be on to the next tile. What I'm trying to say is, this is tile number 1, and this is where the car is. Now, if I go here onto the car's Z position, and if I add 50 to that, right? So at the moment, it's like minus 13. So if I add 50 to that, that will be like 37. And if I add 50 to the car's initial position, then you know that it will have traversed the entire length of the tile. So if it was initially somewhere over here on the first tile, it means that it's probably gone over onto the other tile by now. So if I click on environment tile number 2, you'll see that that's where it is. You notice how by adding 50 to my car's Z value, I realized that when the cars moved on to the next tile. I hope that makes sense. I'm going to move the car back, and again, I'm going to reiterate one more time what I was trying to do. So, what I'm trying to say is, as the car moves forward, every time the car has moved 50 units forward in the Z direction, it will have obviously changed a tile, right? Again, that's because the length of a single tile is 50 units. Therefore, if the car travels 50 units forward, it's going to have changed a tile. Should be straightforward. And that's really all we need to do. We need to keep checking, and we need to check every time and see if the car has traveled more than 50 units. Every time the car travels 50 units, we know, all right, boom, let's spawn another tile. Every time it's moved 50 units, we'll turn this one off from here, and we'll shift it all the way to the start of the road, okay? So let's see how we can do that. Now, one thing I want to say is that in between videos, I actually changed the function here to make it even more simpler. So even though we didn't talk about it previously in the last video, the function was set up a little bit differently. It also worked. It also made sense. But just for the sake of explanation, I wanted to change it so that the code matches exactly what I just said. Okay. So what I did was I come over here and I have my I initialized a new variable. I called it a private float starting Z position. So I want this to be the very starting position where the car starts, okay? So for example, over here, the car is starting here. I need this position because just like I said, I need to know where the car is starting so I can check has it gone more than 50 units or not. So I can make this variable like so. And since it's a private variable, I can pretty much get it like so. The way I would do this is I already have my player, right? In the last what can I say? In the last video, we got the transform position of the player, right? So now the starting Z position is pretty much just the Z position from the transform. So last time we got the entire transform, but the only thing we really need is the Z position. Now you could have done this in one line. I just happened to do it in two. So the starting Z position is simply going to be the player objects transform dot position dot Z. So this right here only refers to the Z value of our player. Okay. So now that I have the Z value, I know that this variable stores the initial starting position, which in this case just happens to be minus 13. Just depends on where your car is, and we'll fool around with it later, but that's what it is for now. So in my check and update environment function, the one that we're going to make in this video, what I'm doing here is I check I'm going to be calling this function every single frame, right? I'm calling it in my update. So this one is going to be running in every single frame. Every single frame, what I do is I check the Z position of my car, which is the current Z position of my car, and I check, is it greater than the starting Z position plus 50, okay? What I'm saying is, as my car starts moving forward, right, as my game, let's say it starts here, and as my car starts moving forward, I know that my starting Z position is at this spot, okay? And every frame, as my car moves forward, what I do is I check if the new position of the car is greater than the starting position plus 50, okay? Think about that. So let's say my starting position is here somewhere, okay? And I know that if I add 50 to that, it's going to be here somewhere. And I'm just checking, once my game starts, in my update, every frame as my car starts moving forward, I just keep checking, is this position, my current position, the Z position of the car, is it greater than this position somewhere over here? Okay, I hope that makes sense. What I'm doing is I'm simply comparing the current position, okay, of my car. Is it greater than whatever the starting position was plus 50? If that is the case, if my car has moved more than 50 units, this will be true, okay? If it has moved more than 50 units from the starting position, my car will be onto the next tile. Now I know that I can easily call my update environmental function to update my environment, essentially, to remove the first tile and put it at the end. So I call my update environmental function. Now what I need to do is I need to update my starting Z position, because look, once my car is over here onto this tile, and let's say I remove this tile, okay, so let's say our car comes over here in our update, we realize that the current Z position is greater than the starting Z position plus 50, so I call update tiles, and this tile over here, let's say, at the moment I'm just going to disable it, but let's pretend that it goes all the way to the end. So now it's all the way to the end. And now what I need to do is I need to update my starting Z position, because now I need to start my counter, so to speak, again. I need to start checking, well, okay, if I update my starting Z position to over here, then I can say, well, is my player position.z greater than the starting Z position plus 50? So I can once again start my counter, and I can start counting. All right, so from this point forward, is my car greater than 50? Is my car greater than 50? Is my car greater than 50? And boom, yes it is. So let's see. Is it greater than 50? Yeah, so it's 50. So now I can also move this one onto the end of the road somewhere over here. Okay, I hope that makes sense. All we're doing here is we're getting the starting position of the car at the very beginning of the game. Then we check every single frame that has the car gone 50 units or not, 50 units more or not from its starting position. If it goes 50 units past its starting position, we can now update our tiles. And then once we update the first tile, we need to keep doing that, right, as the car keeps moving forward. So to make sure that this keeps happening every 50 units, we simply update our starting Z position. Okay, now I think this is quite straightforward, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask and I'll be able to clear it up. So without further ado, once you've made this function, we can go ahead and call it in our update. Once again, update gets called every single frame. Just remember that. So now let's see what we have here. I'm going to enable both of our tiles. Let's see. Okay, and let's move our taxi a little bit back to where it was. And let's see. Let's try and hit play and see what happens. Okay, let's not maximize on play. All right. So we've got our car. Let's give it some speed. Let's give it, okay, that's too slow. So maybe 25. And so now we have our car. And look at what's happening. It's beautiful, isn't it? Okay. As you can see, I was trying to look for a better view. But as you can see, sure enough, our tiles are moving, aren't they? We still have all 5 of our tiles here. We're reusing them, and they're just getting repositioned over and over again, okay? So let's just have a look at that one more time, just to make sure. Okay, so this is a good view. Let's look at like so. And what? Okay, yeah, so at the moment my car isn't moving. When I give it some speed, So let's give it 15, and you'll see that when it's passed, so every time it passes that line, 50 units, it spawns another, or not spawns, rather it moves one tile from the back and it moves it to the front, okay? So I hope that this made sense. Now this was a relatively short video, and that's all I want to talk about in this video. The last couple of videos, including this one, have been about object pooling. Now, I really hope that you understand object pooling, but if you don't, feel free to ask. Feel free to go back and have a look. You can go at some pretty crazy speeds, even with just some 5 tiles. So if you just want to have some fun, and if you want to try and maybe let's see, crank up the speed. So as you can see, I'm going at 100 units and such, and it's still keeping up quite well. Of course, you can see the end of the road here. So that's something we will talk about in a little bit more detail. Of course, for now, you can just increase the number of tiles and such, but I'm just going to stick with 5 for now. But you can see that it looks fine, and it looks like, you know, you're traveling on a road and you're just cruising along. And of course, as always, if you want to move right and left, this is working just fine. Now, the jump, of course, is very lethargic, and we'll look at that, and I'll talk about what we can do about that. So yeah, I think that's all I want to say for now. If this video was helpful, then as always, just don't forget to like, subscribe, and if you think that there's someone else who would like to learn game development, and if these videos are helpful for you, they might be helpful for them also. So go ahead and spread the word, and I will see you in the next video.